All right, I think we got
All right,
better.
it's 4 o'clock. We're gonna call to order the Downtown Economic Vitality Team. If you would take a look at the agenda, this is the time to add anything to the minutes, if anybody would like to, or we could get a motion to approve as submitted.
An extra agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, then maybe just enough. I'll motion to approve the minutes as stated.
All right, I'll take the minutes and go into it. Old business. We mix those up. Alignment of team and projects. Old business,
I've got you want to,
special event discussion.
yeah, I'd say we'll go and start with the new business on special event discussion.
Okay. Special event discussion. Today we want to talk about, we have a representative from the police force, the Hendersonville Police Department here with us. We want to talk about logistics of closing down Main Street, the impact on businesses, and if we can find a way to get efficient, reduce the amount of time that the street is closed, I believe would be the goal. But we want to talk and voice a few concerns and hear about just the process that goes through closing down Main Street.
For some background for. For why this is kind of coming up for today is at our board meeting in
November.
November. It was right after Halloween. Since y'all three weren't, wouldn't be at the board meeting. That was right after Halloween and there was some concern about the street getting closed too early for Halloween. And some discussion on being more active on and aggressive on towing. And so there was some kind of back and forth conversation, but we really wanted to bring it to a smaller group to talk about. And also Lieutenant Cantwell is the representative for the Special Events Committee. So he does all of the IAPs for all events, which stands for Incident Action Plan. And so that's all of the public safety stuff that he does for all of that. So that goes into the closures for the streets. And since we've got Mark here and he's the one who started that conversation, just see if there's any particulars that you want to kind of highlight on that, Mark.
Sticking it to you.
Want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay, well, hi, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Mark Pale. I work for the Black Bear Coffee Company. I'm also on the Downtown Advisory Board. We had a couple merchants on Main Street were discussing and had a little frustration with, especially after the hurricane, the loss of revenue that we saw with the Treat Streets. Treat Streets is a great event. We love how big it's become, but it's also because it's larger. And there hasn't been in the past, a lot of people have seen some loss in revenue due to more vendors on the street, more food on the street, and closure of the street. So we had brought it up, had a very lively discussion about it, and frustration was kind of expressed. And the questions that we kind of had, which was asked to bring back down or bring over to the Economic Vitality Committee, was how can we be more efficient with the street closure? We've noticed a lot of times the street will close and for a couple hours, the HPD will allow people to remove their cars off the street after the closure has already happened. And we're just seeing if there's any way of accelerating that. Other cities, when they put the warning out, they'll do one drive, maybe two drive, give people an extra half hour, and then they'll have 5 or 6 tow trucks ready to go. Generally, if you can, be more detailed on this, but I don't generally see a lot of cars. It's generally a couple cars, but it does hold up the whole process. And if we can shrink that time. Because there are a lot of businesses on Main Street that are like clothing stores and they don't get any, it hurts them tremendously when we close for events like that. Our business, some of the restaurants, you know, it doesn't hurt as much and in a lot of ways will actually help us. But as a representative for Main Street and our 300 block, you know, it's up to me to bring that up to all of us to discuss and kind of see and how we can improve, because there's always improvement that's around as long as we can discuss it openly.
And if there's a strong desire from this committee and the downtown board to recommend something, then ultimately that's gonna be a council decision, because they're gonna be the ones who start getting phone calls on if like 22 cars get towed or something to that effect. So that's like, whatever the downtown board and committees decide, that's just a suggestion for them to have to then consider on that.
I think on our end, a lot, sorry, Judy, on our
Okay.
end, a lot, you know, Hendersonville is growing exponentially. And 4 years ago, 3 years ago, we didn't see what we were seeing now. So to have a couple cars, it was like, oh, that's Jim's car, you know, like we'll get it. But now it's not like that anymore. And I know that our city is progressing in a way of a more modern city with, you know, cameras on downtown and things like that. So maybe this is another step that we need to take to execute so that our merchants don't hurt so much.
And just kind of on some historical stuff too, like part of the reason with the street closures and making sure that all the vehicles out, it's become a lot more of a process the last several years, just due to like safety. You know, we just saw it a couple weeks ago. But like, so the process of getting the barricades secure and everything secure takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to do all that. And that's not gonna change. That's only gonna get more and more as these things happen more and more frequently. So that's just kind of where that is with it. I guess, let's see. Well, if you've got much to add.
Yeah,
on it.
I don't wanna interrupt anybody or jump anybody's protocol, but and when Jamie and I talked, well, actually, when she came to me, about a month ago, I guess, and asked me to be here, I thought, you know, it's a big good opportunity to just kind of let y'all know, but the behind the scenes and what all it entails. I think up to 2 hours before the event has been the most that we've shut it down. It's so hard to tell. Halloween, I think, is a really good example, because we came up to start closing Main Street down. I think it was like, I think we towed one, maybe 2 cars. And I was like, holy crap, this went really well. But as soon as I planned for this, the next event, which was Christmas parade, I had 12. And so I have to allow, and each event that we have, especially the total closures of Main Street, I have records on standby. That works out some good sometimes, and sometimes it works out really bad. Christmas parade, it worked out really bad, because they're not getting paid to sit down there in the parking lot and wait for me to call or not call. So they had a wreck on I-26 and had to leave. So I had 8 to 10, I exaggerated by 2. It was 8 to 10 cars that I needed to get off Main Street, and I had no records. So I had to back up punt and call all the record companies and say, if you got a truck, send it to Main Street. I need them up here. So we've got a good rapport with most of our tow companies. But at the same time, they're in it to make money too, and they can't just sit there for 2 hours. Although most of the time they will, because we have that relationship with them. They're hesitant to just send 2 trucks to sit stagnant. They may make $1, they may not for 2 hours. So that's that. I've got to allow for the timing to tow 2 cars or up to 10 cars. And that's where it's just a juggle of, I can't say every event we leave Main Street open 1 hour to prior to the event starting, because we may run into, especially with the Christmas parade, which y'all may not like me saying this, but thank God it's not going to be live televised anymore. We had, I had a hard deadline of this thing needs to start at 6 o'clock. And there was some issues with that this year, but that's not for this group. But, it's just, there's so much to play, and like Jamie brought up, like the event that just happened in New Orleans is the special event. I love where we live. I'm from Middle Tennessee. I've been here for 16 years now, but I love where we live. It is, a small mountain town, but it is growing. We're growing very rapidly. In the 16 years that I've been here, it blows my mind, how much we've grown. Our events are growing. It's great for the city, it's great for downtown, but it comes with some aggravations and frustrations for the business owners, and I get that. I can't compromise some things. I can on others, but the safety and the footprint of our event has got to be my number one priority, coming from my standpoint, from the police department standpoint. And the city has seen that, and, speaking with, Mr. Connett and, Mr. Polly, we were able to purchase some anti-vehicle barricades this year. I'm sure you saw those on the last couple of events that we had this year. We were able to get them out. Halloween was the first one that we deployed them on. And I think we'll be adding to that. That makes establishing the footprint a little bit quicker because they are mobile. Once they're put together, you can put poles in and they're on wheels and they can be put in place quicker. So that can reduce our time of the footprint of the event being Main Street. I don't mean use different terms, but to me, the footprint of the event is usually all Main Street for a big event. But the water barricades take quite a bit of time. They're our next best option other than the anti-vehicle barriers that we have right now. It takes water department. I think from one avenue, I think it's like 20 minutes, isn't it? 15, it's like 15
Sure.
minutes, I think, to close down avenues. So I have to allow for that. I can't close all the avenues down if I have vehicles still on Main Street. I have to give them an exit out. With the anti-vehicle barriers that we have, it's made it a little bit easier. Because we're predominantly using them on the north end and the south end of Main Street. So I can leave those semi-open using just like a sawhorse barricade to allow people to exit. I can't just leave it wide open because that just allows more cars to come in and park on Main Street. But that at least allows the vehicles on Main Street to exit while the water department and the fire department are filling the water field barricades on the avenues. The reducing the time and being more aggressive on towing, and I will admit to you, the last thing I want to do is tow a vehicle off Main Street. It creates some additional issues that I brought up to Mr. Connett. For us is we have out of towners, South Carolina, Georgia, wherever they're from, we tow the vehicle, they don't know the area. And then I feel like I'm responsible for getting them to their car, even though it's their own, pardon my language, stupidity for parking there, because we have two signs on every block saying no parking after 3 p.m. So it's kind of on them, but I kind of feel like we're responsible for getting them to their car. So then I take the manpower that I have that's closing Main Street, that's working on establishing the footprint for the event and getting them to their car. And we do that to try to not have to file so many complaints and city council not get yelled at. So
They'll have a good experience when they come downtown. So even if.
Not leave a bad taste.
Police officer, take them to there. That's a little bit of a.
So we try to kind of go the extra mile on our end when we do tow somebody's car off of Main Street. To get, if I had 5 or 6 tow trucks on standby, I'd say, yeah, we probably could reduce the time because they can get up there, they can snatch cars and get them off Main Street pretty quickly.
But you just don't even know if you have.
In reality, the most I've ever had is 2.
So you're clearing the streets and you're putting up barricades, and those are the two kind of most time consuming activities of closing down the street.
Yes.
What else is involved? Is there one other thing I feel like you mentioned?
Just establishing the event footprint, closing the avenues, the pre-event activities, that's what takes the most time.
And so then, like, new vendors don't really get, vendors to set up don't really get let in until the street is
That's,
clear.
yeah, I'm just talking about like
Yeah.
a parade event. I'm not talking about an event with vendors.
Yeah.
Cause an event with vendors is a whole nother beast because they have to have time to set up their trailer or their truck on Main Street. So that backs that time up even more. I don't know what we usually give them. We usually give them,
Halloween is a harder one because when the street closes for an event that happens same day, there's a lot shorter of a time period.
What time do the streets close?
They close at
What was-
when
One,
for what?
Halloween?
Treat
For Halloween?
the street closed at, we had no parking signs after. Also,
I don't-
there was no parking after 12. And so then the street was clear by what, like 2?
Yeah, and vendors moved
And
in.
vendors come in
That hour.
between 2 and 4, and all vendors' vehicles have to leave by no later than about 4:30 because it starts getting people walking all over the place. Even if the event doesn't start till 5, so.
Let's let vendors go both ways down Main Street when they're setting up.
Yeah, we've been working with them.
Okay,
It's gotten better.
Okay, good.
They basically all come in one way and exit another way.
so along those lines, I think you were talking about the barricades themselves. So ideally, it sounds like we wouldn't have the water barricades, right? You would have the other kind. I know the
Are we talking about
They
future?
seem easier to move.
ideal situation.
Ideal
yes.
situation, I'd have the mobile anti-vehicle barricades to cover the entire footprint of Main Street.
Or ideal, we'd have a good vehicle.
Bollards,
bollards,
right, and
but
all that kind of.
Well, yeah, ideally, that would be,
That's like,
How do you store the water barricades? Like, where are they right now?
the water barricades are at the warehouse on Sugarloaf. We have a big warehouse.
that takes all the public works coming in with trailers.
You move-
Right, so that's where I
Public
feel like
on trailer and bring them.
that would be the goal, right, is to get to that
Fill up
The
on site.
evening,
moving the water barricade process.
That would, but that
Stage on-
probably wouldn't
on the
be able to
corner.
get cars towed out and cleared the street faster.
But on streets, when do we put the signs up for the no parking?
The signs go out in the night before or the early, and like they put them out.
My night shift guys, depending on the starting of whatever time it is, if it's no parking after
Saying
one,
like 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
and no parking after 5.
So
Is that what you're
the
asking?
signs that go on the cones in the middle of the street.
When do we start? Tom?
When do we start putting those out? 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock?
When do they start? Okay, when do we put them out? So if it's a no parking after 1, my midnight guys will usually put them out about midnight.
Because we don't want to confuse
Night
people
shift.
for the day before.
If it's a no parking after like 3, usually my day shift guys will put them out about 6 in the morning. So I usually try to, I mean, they're out, going back to that stupidity statement I made earlier, I mean, they're out with plenty of notice.
And there were some comments
I
on.
don't feel, I think that we're definitely giving people plenty of time.
And I will say, I mean, the merchants on Main Street are not inconsiderate for blind to the work that Public Works and the police officer, I mean, we definitely see it and appreciate it. I think where the frustration comes in is that, you know, we have an event that on a what day was it
It
on?
was Saturday.
Saturday? On a Saturday.
Halloween, it was on Thursday.
It was in the league.
Chris,
I mean, I understand y'all's side of it.
Oh, you were talking
It
about.
happens at 5 at night, yet no one's allowed to park after noon.
Yeah.
And then we lose our entire lunch
Hmm.
and early dinner and dinner business for an event that's starting at 5. So
Right.
that's a 5-hour window for setup. I think the hope is that we can bring that down to like a 3-hour window. At least we can get through our lunch and have some afternoon traffic. And then, you know, an hour, and if we have toast that we can, people know, it's been out for hours and hours and hours. And believe me, we want people to feel welcome in Hendersonville, especially with meters and all the new stuff that a lot of people are kind of stirred up about. However, let's just be straight, like as merchants on Main Street, we pay county, city and Main Street tax, you know, we are hit a lot.
Mhm.
We bring a lot of revenue, I'm not, you know, all of us bring a lot of revenue, Seventh Ave to this area. And it just hurts when it's a day like that. And
Sure.
then, you know, and especially after the hurricane, everybody was like, my gosh.
Yeah.
And to get real specific about it, if you're in the tourism business, which this whole city is, that 2 to 4 window, it's like the dead zone. Anything before 2 o'clock is like, especially on a Saturday, I tell my people like it's sacred. This is 30% of my revenue for the year happens on Saturdays. But from 2 to 4, everybody's done with lunchtime. Everybody kind of chills out from shopping. Everyone goes back to work. So that's like the ideal time. If we could dodge that noon to 2 o'clock window, it's really, really significant for businesses of.
And you know, I don't know, I realize, I'm doing this a long time, I realize that no, we're not gonna come to any agreement in this room. I understand that. There's the only, you know, adjusting start times of events might be a consideration.
We did do that for, RMA didn't happen, but we required them to push back their load-in time, understanding all of that, because we've had this conversation before. And Treat Street wasn't one that was part of the conversation. The parade was, and the Art on Main were the two that we had the conversation about before. So we pushed that back in order to do it. Treat Street is kind of a little bit of a different story though, because there's only so late that you can start kids stuff. And the problem is gonna be that we'll probably be back here the same time next year, because Halloween next year will be on a Friday.
We noticed these things on that Thursday at Treat Street, but the concern was for the Christmas stuff that was gonna be like on Saturdays. And so while we're doing the same kind of thing, the context like really changes, like
Yeah.
what we care about, how
Absolutely.
much money's involved.
And I also think just the size, like,
Mhm.
5
There
years
was-
ago, Treat Streets, we didn't have any.
Oh,
of it.
Yeah,
It is,
yeah,
it is.
like one street.
No, we had a DJ, we had something like that.
It was nothing like this past one. I mean, it was.
And maybe that's part of the conversation.
This year than we were the previous year. But best case scenario, the star of the moon, everything line up, it takes me an hour to establish footprint.
There was, you said
That's
that,
best case scenario.
you said the fastest event was 2 hours before. What event was that? Do you remember? Like the quickest that you guys ever did was 2 hours.
No, I'm saying that was Halloween.
Without.
No, that was Halloween, and what I meant by that, and I should have clarified, I apologize. What I meant by that, it only took us 2 hours. Now, because, well, I think we only had to tow like 1, maybe 2 cars.
Yeah, so what happened there? You have to budget for 12 cars being there, but it
Yeah.
just happened to be, you just
And
didn't
it
have to
just
do it.
happened to be so, and that's what makes it, I know, extra frustrating for y'all is you walk out and there's not a single car on Main Street and it's still an hour and a half, 2 hours before an event. That, you know, I just happened to. Yeah.
It was not clear for Halloween. I walked onto Main Street at 2 o'clock and it was completely full of cars. So it was not cleared out at 1 o'clock. And so there were still plenty of customers shopping on Main Street at 2 o'clock on the Halloween, just.
But wouldn't, so what, question about establishing footprint, do you try to establish the entire footprint kind of all at once?
No, and see, that's another thing, there's a art that we've gotten
Yeah.
down pat to it, is we start pulling inbound lanes.
Okay.
And that starts slowing the traffic down onto Main Street. So once, and by pulling inbound lanes, I mean a soft closure with the sawhorse
Yeah.
barricades. And as blocks start becoming 100% clear, then we go to a hard closure on the block.
Mhm.
And then that block's established, and then we just start working our way either south to north or north to south.
Yep, but
And usually we start south and work our way north.
as far as the signage and notification goes, that changing that to staggered is not going to be an easy solution, because each block, and it's on the app for Park Mobile, it's on the kiosks and everything
The only
else.
thing I was thinking is
Yeah.
one time you did north to south and the next time you do south to north, and then maybe somewhere in the middle, you know, your block could be open longer, or at least next time it's open
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the purpose of us having the discussion today was not to come out with the end result, that's obviously not here today. I mean, it's just to stimulate conversation. I do have to disagree with you, though. You said that we'll never come to an agreement on this. I definitely think that we can come.
I think that's.
Well, I think we can agree with
that.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree.
Just making some progress so that, you guys are successful and Main Street's successful, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was pretty heated. There was some people that were kind of upset at the last meeting and had
I'm sure.
had a lot of frustration and, like I said, we're all in this together. So we just wanted to bring everybody in on the conversation to help stimulate some ideas and ways that we can maybe streamline it a little bit or,
I would like to find like a concrete solution that we could take to city council and say, hey, can we change this?
Right, because eventually this is gonna happen for Seventh Ave too. So we're gonna have to
Yeah.
figure something out that works here that we can also transpose into that district as
So I
well.
had a crazy idea. What if, so Caroline was already policing her parking spaces last Christmas and Treat Street area. What if you outsourced some of your pre-closure stuff to the people that are sitting there staring at their parking spaces anyway? And she just puts out like a couple cones in front of her thing at 2:00. And as soon as the parking space clears, you just like take them. And now this block's closed down if you can get everybody on the block to join in.
We do that when it's smaller events.
Yeah.
A courthouse and stuff like that with for the whole street, that's probably gonna be pretty.
When you're looking at an end result of 2 to 5, whatever, 80 cars anyways, I think that wouldn't necessarily catch those cars that were already there that are just still there.
I think nobody feels too bad for those people. I don't think anybody.
That's what I told them. Don't get me wrong. I will tow a car in a heartbeat. I don't have a problem towing a car when it's been posted for 8 hours, not to park here.
Some of the first things you said, just some simple questions. The different tow companies that come in might change from event to event. Do they tow the cars to a central location near Main Street? Do they tow them back to their lot?
So that's one thing that we're working with on our end. We've had some issues, but I can't give you definitive answers without beating around the bush on this.
That seems like a possible.
We had a-
Time saving.
We had a short tow just down to, the garage, city garage, city ops in that parking lot.
Yep.
That's where they were going. The problem with that was then a tow company has to post somebody there with their car, with the car. Because owner comes up and says, hey, my car was towed. We'll say, it's down at city ops parking lot. That's where you need to go get your car. They'll go down there, get the car and take off. Tow company doesn't get paid. So now the tow company has to post somebody in that parking lot and stand there and wait for owners to come get the car to collect their fee for the tow. So then you're getting into 2 employees, and that's just for 1 truck. So that was an issue that we had. So we kicked around the idea of, okay, they tow that car to their lot. All right, well, I've got a lot off of Dana Road. I've got a lot towards Fletcher. Now I've got a 15-minute one-way drive for my truck. And so we're talking about a 30-minute round trip to get back to Main Street and tow another car.
What
So,
about, on that,
it's-
I know you'll probably talk about much different options, but is that something that could be it could be towed to police and then they can't get it until they leave a check at dispatch?
Now, is that something that we could volunteer?
That's what I was thinking for and also
Just throwing it out.
more so than for taking money, because I wasn't aware of that. That's an interesting side note. But just to take up your officer's time, taxiing people seems absurd. A volunteer could certainly do that.
Yeah.
Could take one of the 3 people that was dumb enough to leave their cars on Main Street that day. We could have a volunteer possibly that would take them to wherever their car is, whether it's in a central location or back to this tow lot. And save time there. But yeah, that jumped out to me as a possible window we could take from from an hour to 30 minutes or from 2 hours to an hour and a half of like, okay, central location, volunteer, someone other than a police officer taking them to their car, like that's something in there.
We have been doing that. It's been
Yeah.
city ops, it's been where the cars been going. Cause it's a short, straight down the hill.
I mean, and they can walk, they can just walk. From, unless
I
they're
agree.
disabled or.
That's what ends up.
And it's a lot of times
Hey,
out of town, you don't know how to get there.
Volunteers take money at Rhythm and Bruce. We could have a volunteer collecting money for.
They'd have, I guess, because it'd be different.
We are totally hands off on money on toes.
Sure.
Yeah,
We won't play, I think, I couldn't hear you, but that's what you.
Department or the city?
I-
Police department.
that was what I was throwing out as a possibility
Is
there.
there a possibility that we could shorten the time that we ask them to be there and guarantee them from the city some amount of money that if you do have to sit here for an hour and you don't tow anyone, okay, we'll comp you whatever you would have made or percentage of what you would have made.
Could the tow trucks multitask and help set up the event? Imagine a place we're storing these barricades, you bring in a barricade. you tow out the
They
car,
are
you
absolutely
just-
not gonna do
you're
that.
Working the whole path.
Yeah, that.
Well,
To make it worth it for them.
Yeah,
we need to get the cars off and some of it's, you know, shit happens and, you know, you can't move your car, right? Some out of the concern, out of the blue concern. The other is, I think the other extreme, which is like, you're just totally oblivious, like people on vacation literally leave their brains at home. I worked in tourism one winter and I was shocked by the questions we got. Like, do you have restrooms? Every building in America has restrooms, people. Either way, so I know like the people on vacation are really clueless. Like, they don't get it. They don't want to, they don't want to think. So in that regards, is there a best practice that another small town has done with communication? Like hitting them over the head, like at the kiosk, like any message they can get when they do pay
Now,
for
though,
parking?
Do signage on the kiosks.
yeah, there's 3 signs taped on every kiosk and on the app, it alerts
They
them
see.
every time. So if anyone has paid for parking,
Right,
then they have gotten hit by this,
but if they're not paying for parking, which is a whole other discussion,
they're not even.
then the communications,
The risk you take.
okay.
And one of the things that was brought up by somebody else was kind of like, they see the cars and they know it's a local and they're in Hannah's having a beer and they know the police aren't gonna tow them for another hour. So
And that's what our people are.
they're not concerned about moving it at the.
So it's
proper-
like, can we just kind of put like a piece of paper on their cars the next event that's like, you know, not a ticket, not a warning, but like, hey, we see you.
They actually
move.
It is.
So.
Well, they could, but or do we want to take a more friendly approach and then get more serious?
I think the other
Hey,
concern that was brought up is that that's been happening.
Yeah.
It's
It's,
about time.
If it's no parking after 3 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, I tell my parking guys, start writing tickets.
Go time.
At 3:30, we usually start we
Yeah.
start towing.
yeah, that's what came up at the downtown board was it's not that's the claim was that it's not visitors. Or maybe for Halloween, for Christmas time, I think it's definitely visitors. But that was what the argument was on that. So
I mean, digital signage,
it's on everything, and for the big events, we put out on almost every corner of the street sandwich boards that say when the parking ends, also a map that shows where the bathrooms are and where they.
Yeah.
It's like, there's only so much, I don't think there's any more we can do as far as notifying people.
I think it was just efficiency. We're kind of, how can we streamline it so that we can get it done faster?
Yeah, so-
Do we Load up 6 tow trucks. Do we, you know, what do we do? Do we get merchants out on Main Street, you know? Coning off
ask
spaces
every
at a certain.
person ringing up someone to be like, move your car.
I don't know.
And some of the businesses, when even if they notice their customer, they're like, that's their own fault for not. That's what I've heard many of the businesses say. They're not gonna try to find customers because that's their own fault for not
So
doing.
how intense has feedback been for people that have been towed that have reached back out to the city? Is it like,
I don't know, actually. I haven't gotten any, but I'm sure
Every event, we field probably 3, 4, 5 complaints.
Okay.
about being towed.
Yeah, about being towed. Now, I mean, they don't have a leg stand on. I think we do very well with signage. I think we do very well notifying
And these are people who were kindly escorted to their vehicles that are still complaining.
Well, no, those that, and when I said that, that's not really a shotgun everybody. I mean, you know, if I have somebody that's disabled, I'm not gonna make them walk 4 blocks down there. If I have, you know,
Elderly couple.
elderly couple, I'm not gonna make them walk down there. When they don't know how to find their way out of a brown paper bag and they're not from here. You know, and I try to explain to them where City Ops is and they look at me like they don't know.
It is good, yeah, it's not easy.
Just
Right.
get in the car and I'd run them down there because it doesn't take that long. It's kind of this is all evolving. Going back to what you said earlier, you know, these events are getting bigger. They're getting more frequent. We're getting more events. This is my 2nd year in the position that I'm in. So every event and every time we set up, I'm up there and trying to figure out how we can do this better and quicker. I really think the anti-vehicle barriers are the way to go. It is really making it a whole lot easier for us. There's an internal struggle that we have with those. Are they PD's responsibility? Are they Public Works responsibility? And who's doing what? But that's on our end to figure out. It is making it a little, as I see that these are quicker, that we can establish that footprint and have the road closed quicker, then maybe we can back off on the times. I can't account for 2 cars or 12 cars to tow. The tow companies, I say we have a good working relationship with them, and we do. I can't necessarily fault for them from all wanting to send trucks to sit up there in Deadhead for 2 hours, you know? So I get their concern for that. If I had the capability of having 6 trucks up there, I can tell you right now, I could cut an hour to an hour and a half off of it.
Just-
How many contracts or relationships, how many truck companies do you think?
I can't give you a definitive, I don't know how many truck companies we have on a rotational list right now. The Captain Hibbs takes care of that, so I'm not sure. It's about 5, maybe 6. Don't print me on that, cause I know that's.
Well, maybe-
It's an open invitation. It's not a lottery or anything. It's not a rotating.
No, we have a rotating, and we, for like, if one of my guys pulls over a car, or whatever, we need to tow it right now. He'll contact dispatch to send the next rotation, and whoever's top of the list will get that tow. And then the next one comes up, that one goes to the bottom.
So and is there any kind of requirement for response time?
Yes and no. I know I'm not really giving you any definitive answers, but some days it's great. I mean, they have a 30-minute response time. That's their contract with us. When we call them and say, hey, we have a tow wherever in the city, they have 30 minutes to get there. Now, if they don't get there within 30 minutes, we go to the next tow truck, or
That's another.
they say we're 3 minutes out. Do I just wait that extra 3 minutes, or do I call another one and give them 30 minutes? So it's
Well, I mean, so they could, I mean, if they want to play, I mean, that's a business decision on their part. They just say, we have to commit a truck and a dude here for this time. And it might work. But they make those decisions every day. So
I agree.
Complain.
They don't make as much money towing a car off Main Street to City Ops as they.
They can opt out.
26. So I mean, it's at a reduced fee. It's not that much.
Ask you a question. You
Yes, sir.
said that some of the tow trucks are just dead, sitting there for a couple hours. Why is it so long? Why isn't it like between 3 and 3:30, we need the first 3 on the list?
That was on my mind.
And then between 3 and 3:30, they show up 3:30, you're like, all right, you've been here 15, some show up late, some show up a little early, let's start rolling. Like, why?
I think we're talking 2 different things. I'm not.
From 3 to 3:30.
When I said deadheaded for a couple hours, I mean, while I'm shutting Main Street down and getting vehicles off, they're sitting, waiting. And then when I say, like, I keep saying 3:30, I know that, but when I get to the tow time, they don't deadhead anymore. They immediately come up to Main Street and start.
Classifies tow time once all the avenues are shut down?
Usually I give a 30-minute, like, if it's no parking after 3, at 3 o'clock, everybody starts getting tickets.
Right.
3:30, everybody starts getting towed.
Right, regardless of avenue.
And so you just don't see that because there's only two, there might be two tow trucks, so the cars get cleared out. If one tow truck comes in, they start going, but they might not all be towed there because if there's 20 cars there, but one tow truck, you're only gonna see the one from whatever place that you're seeing towing.
Right, but like you were saying, if we just had like called them all and said, listen, it's 3 o'clock, our road's closed, we're ticketing 4 cars, we need 4 tow trucks here by 3:30. Or quarter.
They're used to being there in 30 minutes anyways.
Yeah, my immediate response to that be was by the time we tow the first one, the other 3 are moved. Now I've got 3 trucks that
Sure.
come up to Main Street.
And they're like,
No
oh,
reason.
some cars.
And then they're gonna start, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
They might do it.
But they're gonna start going, this isn't worth it. The next time I call them, they're gonna be like, no.
It's one thing, no.
My side of the private sector, like, I'm always trying to be efficient, trying to reduce costs and trying to make people like, make sure we get it done as quickly as possible, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Do cities themselves ever have their own tow trucks?
Have our own business.
Probably with liability.
Yeah.
no, they absolutely do, like.
Buy our own tow truck and.
They do. You're absolutely correct, they do. But it's usually only for investigative purposes.
Hmm.
It's usually not for. you
I'm
know,
sure
improper
legal.
parking.
Seen vehicles.
It's for CIA. Don't car dealerships move cars now without having a tow truck? Don't they just kind of,
They have rollbacks,
yeah,
car dealership.
can't we just move them?
It probably depends on how they're parked and what kind of parking space they're in.
Tow trucks are, I mean, all of them are attaching with rollbacks.
Yeah, that's what car dealers have, but
But do you know what I mean, yeah,
Well,
Seems like
driving this on, I don't know how much
Yeah.
time. you-
So-
One thing that my biggest thing, and Jamie, I have not seen eye to eye on this, but we have come to our compromise on this, I've got a pretty hard rule of no vehicles allowed inside event footprint. No vehicles are allowed inside the footprint of an event. And the past couple of events have even kind of solidified my stance on that. We kind of come to a compromise of the only vehicles allowed in the footprint are vehicles under our control. Via downtown committee, special events committee, volunteers, we control the vehicle.
Aside from vendors.
Well,
Their vehicles
that
aren't
counts.
allowed in unless it's like a sponsor.
I mean, during the actual event.
during the actual event. Now, my blew a gasket during Alpha Festival, I think it was Alpha Festival, when there was a U-Haul that was inside the event perimeter. It was a vendor, I think it's I don't know.
Same.
Anyways, and they were restocking from it. I understand the purpose of it being there. I can't allow it there though, because
Processing.
it's, it was a U-Haul truck. It wouldn't have been hard for somebody to strap something to it in the middle of an event and, then we have a major incident on our hands. But that's one thing that I don't really want to compromise at all, or I won't compromise at all on, is that's why it's so important to establish that footprint. And it's just such a roll of the dice as to how long it's gonna take to do it.
So there aren't necessarily competing interests, but the interests or considerations. So you've got the offender, okay, you got the vendor, the store, your perspective. And you have the tow truck folks. So we're being really considerate to the offenders
We are.
and the tow trucks. I mean, within reason, but it seems like these guys are kind of coming in third.
That's definitely the feeling.
Yeah, I could see your perspective for that. I really could. I don't know what the fix is. There's so many different variables that go into play.
Yeah, you can't control the offender so much because who's gonna, get.
The
But
tow
the
trucks,
guys, seems like that's where it could be like tightened up.
I'm not gonna go.
Those are
too
the
far
ones we
down
can
that
control the
because
least. is-
I agree with you in the fact that I think we give a little bit too much leniency to our tow truck drivers. I get outranked on that one, so I don't want to chase that too far. But, when they sign up, when they come to the police department and say, we would like to be put on your rotation, they have requirements they have to meet. There's a list of requirements that they have to meet. And they also have an annual inspection. We go to their yard and do an inspection every year. The response times is where I lose the argument on. This isn't me trying to pass the buck, but I think the leniency we give on response time is too much.
So that's something that
Is this
we
something
could advocate
that
for
the
on
city
that.
can be a part of and be like, listen, our events are getting bigger, we're gonna need 3 or 4 tows at a time. If you're not gonna be here, then you're automatically on the B list.
And for the private sector, I think it's fine guaranteeing that they're gonna have work to do. Just tow people sooner.
And then I think we also need to look towards like a master plan of, the best event security and work towards that. So do we need to ask council over the next 5 years for $100,000 a year to get these barricades and bollards? Cause it seems like if they're quicker and easier to set up,
Yeah.
they also might be like, you put a bollard down and then that one car that needs to be towed can be towed and then the bollard's right back up, right? Like there's some efficiencies.
We've got
It's
the,
kind of been what's been in progress, because that's how we got to the point of
it
getting.
got put-
barricades.
That's all.
It got jumped.
Conversation's been around.
it got jumped way up on the priority list this year.
We were able to.
Can we support,
Technical, I would love for us to be able to have retractable.
so do you know about,
Have the infrastructure on
Well,
the street to put.
what is the scale of that ask? And how do we work towards that?
It's in our CIP budget, and it's
You're looking-
been in it for the past several years.
Footprint of Main Street, a total shutdown, you're looking at almost $800,000.
But in the grand scheme of
I get it.
the world,
And that's why I think.
because one news story is gonna cost us way more.
Slow rolling towards that. That is the end goal.
Not just that, but if we can compare labor costs and
Right.
facility costs of water and the offset.
Yeah.
For maybe not the full ballers, but even the vehicle.
The maintenance, I mean, all of that.
Things on-
add up.
Yeah, all of that is and has been, so I think at our last board meeting, Lou said he's talked about special events since he started here 15 years ago. And I've just been what I've had to talk about ever since I've been here 5 years ago. And that's been the bollards and the AST barricades has been a part of that conversation, including the budget for it since then. And it's continued to get heightened every year.
I feel like there's gotta be grant money or CDBG or something.
Yeah, well, we got these thanks to the hurricane,
Yeah, we
because
did.
it's FEMA. And so we were able to justify that because of the street closures that we had to get. And so they're working on that. That's gonna still be a kind of iterative
Yeah.
process, because we still gotta figure out how to do it.
Yeah, but I think if back to our recommendations to the city council, so we need to take the pressure off you guys, because it's not, you're the middleman, you're stuck in there. So we need to say, maybe tighten up these times, response times.
I would, go ahead, sorry. I would propose some kind of guarantee for the tow truck people. If we think we're becoming a bigger, busier city and there's gonna be guaranteed tows for a certain amount, then that's great. They know they're gonna be able to do something for waiting there. But if they don't, maybe we compensate them so that they're just as interested in coming. And it'll be faster for us anyways, if they don't have to tell anyone.
Or we just make it part of the policy. If you wanna be on the rotation list, you gotta cover Main Street.
So a couple.
Make it, make it worth their while.
Yeah.
Competitive.
So what I've heard then that we can bring to the downtown board, and then we'll continue it on the council is that we want to see how we can shorten the window through tow. And
Strong.
we definitely want to keep talking about the closures, because the more we can continue to press on that, the better that needs to be a priority.
Right off the top, I can take 30 minutes and instead of getting citations, just immediately start towing at 3.
Yeah, and that's something that would need to be, that the board will want to talk about and council will want to talk about, yeah.
They're good,
They're gonna be the-
Hey, they're gonna be the ones that are gonna be getting.
Or
Yeah.
another idea to continue with citations is that while they're loading the car.
They get a citation and towed.
They
Yeah.
get a citation and tow regardless, so.
Yeah,
Cause it's not, I mean, I think Jamie said earlier, you know, it's not the locals. It's almost 90% of the time it's out of town tax.
So if you're worried about taking care of the locals, I'd rather take care of. the
Now,
records.
the locals get a little bit irritating too, because, you know, when it says no parking after 3, then they'll look down and see them starting to tow. And they will stay there until the tow truck is about to their cars. And then I have an argument in the middle of Main Street of I'm here, why is my car being parked, you know, then I've got to look like the real.
That's, once the tow truck touches it,
We're on your side.
And that's that's exactly my rule. If he touches that car, it's his.
Too late.
that's right.
That's where I draw the line
Shouldn't
at.
have waited.
I got a guy backing up, he hasn't got to it yet, and then, you know.
And then the only other thing that we haven't really talked about that would be something that is gonna be
do what Jamie just said.
is needing to say either when events don't happen or when they need to change, which is probably something that would, you know, take a while, but like if Halloween is a problem and it's gonna change days of the week, as the board, if if you're very adamant on this being a problem and the street closure times can't change, I don't think that that's gonna fly, but
Suggest changing it
What'll happen?
Saturdays or Fridays.
yeah. I don't recommend doing that because I don't think that the public will necessarily.
Not a great option.
Because we have to deal with it anyway with all the weekend festivals.
Yeah, the events are going to
It's gonna
happen.
happen, so
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
whether Halloween's on a Tuesday or a Saturday, we should be prepared for that regardless.
Yeah,
So I think also to remind people, like, almost like an MOU and informal is like, the 2 to 4 window is better, right? Like 2 o'clock is the goal.
Off till 2, it
Right.
really, like several $1,000s for a single business. It's a big difference on a Saturday.
I think exploring the central tow area. Even if it's just to approach it again with the tow companies and have a volunteer with a golf cart or something that just like takes people down there to try to speed things up.
I'm like the dogwood lot, like there's plenty of parking.
There's that building that's the city's that doesn't get used on Saturdays.
North and south side. so you can-
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't like that.
It's about to be.
is there?
I don't know how
They're
that's
closing. But, you know, credit where it's due, there's barricades, the establishment, I really don't think that sounds like there's much more that you guys could be doing that's more efficient. I think you guys do an excellent job communicating this.
We can always improve, and this is like, I
Every
said,
year's
this is going
improving.
into my 2nd year, and I'm definitely open to suggestions on how we can. Obviously, security is my #1 priority. But it's with the, you know, these past 2 events that happened the past week and a half have really, put it higher on the radar, as it should be.
Right.
As it should have been anyways. I mean, like I said, when I came here 16 years ago, I mean,
We had sawhorses on Main Street.
Everything.
I
You
mean.
didn't have it.
Yeah, you could barely even see them. They weren't even the bloody ones. They were the.
I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean,
I agree. If we had the infrastructure for it, we could.
But what is the speed maximum limits on those bollards and on the car?
So we were gonna have them on Maple Street as our test run for them, and they had to get pulled from that budget, but they're still looking at how we can install them. And so they have different vehicle ratings, and so we've got, especially after this, cause
Those
this.
are the automatic ones, right?
I think they were like a manual.
some that pull up, and then there's some that pull down.
Yeah, so our plan is to have them, because Maple Street, because the bollards go into a different topic of maintenance. Because for a lot of times when bollards are being used, they're almost 90% of the time they're up, 10% of the time they're down. Where we would have them, they'd be down 95% of the time, except for Maple Street. And so they get a lot more wear and tear and maintenance issues there. So that's why we want to test them on Maple, because that's going to be the most frequent weekly use of them.
Farmers market.
Yeah,
Well, Seventh, I think is more of a possibility. Main Street, I don't know that it's a possibility at all, just because of the underground infrastructure.
Electricity.
it'd be pretty extensive on that, but that's something we definitely looking at, and, cause that was what really after COVID was for like,
But I think to your point about speed, yes, it's important, but I think most of it is to bring attention. So, right, someone makes noise and then hopefully it slows it down enough to where there's at least someone knowing what's going on. So you're never gonna stop it completely, but it's another second or two to.
But for me, I think the most important thing about this conversation is the towing, at least in the short term. We're just trying to get.
That's the thing we can control.
Best opportunity for.
Local tow companies at the ready, maybe city input on that, like maybe helping with the, incentive, pay or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just trying to get that out, that window.
That's what I'm
into the 2 to 4.
explore, because we've never done anything before, and I can, done like that before, and I can definitely see on the tow company side of. Hell, I don't want to send tie 2 trucks up there and maybe tow 1 car, maybe not. So.
Get rid of that.
Incentivizing that of a flyer, I don't know. I could see, I think that definitely could be something we could explore.
and there might be some ways we can look at our event fees and what we're charging to the event organizers to
Containers.
cover some of the, like, if there's an incentive of the tow.
Make it
There
come.
might be something we can figure out as far as if they need $100
Yeah, like a return.
there or something, there might be some way we can, I
Something to make
don't
it
know.
competitive for them, or they want to come out.
It's just part of their policy to get on the
Yeah.
list. I mean, for next year.
Say we need
there's
this.
something.
A and B list.
Yeah.
A list, they're always at the events ready to tow.
Well, we're closing in on 5 o'clock, but it feels like we have a few good suggestions for.
Yeah, this was really helpful. I appreciate the manners.
So is there something that you need this board to talk to someone else, like to help influence and keep bringing these things up? Like, who do we talk to say, hey, bollards are a good idea?
Yeah, earlier we used to have my,
Yeah,
you were talking about, that won't fly with my. I mean, I'm not, you don't even name.
It would be what we'd recommend to council would be
Be the recommendation.
the route on that. And then
Can
if,
you get the downtown advisory board meeting this month in January?
that's next Tuesday, I haven't put the
I
agenda.
live by my calendar. I have to, when is
I
it?
mean.
Next Tuesday.
Sean and the chief maybe as well, and.
We're having some of these internally, so we'll kind of report back on what we had talked about here.
I guess on the agenda for the downtown advisory board meeting, is it not?
We'd had it as a subcommittee, and then this subcommittee would report back of what the discussion was.
To the down.
Yeah, to the downtown board.
On Tuesday.
Tuesday at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to spend the whole board.
Not like
meeting
last
having it,
time.
like that's the whole point of having it, the subcommittee is like fleshing it out
I
here.
think it'd be really good if you brought up the main points that we we're talking about, saying this is what the recommendation is, and does the downtown advisory board
Yeah.
agree or disagree?
Yeah.
Not like, let's
Yeah.
open a discussion.
Yeah, that's how I kind of, because then
Do that.
that'll be our
No.
third hour. Talking about it. So, thanks, probably, it could, yeah, but, y'all timed it at the right meeting with John Connet and Brian at the last one. They heard that loud and clear. But, and I think that this was helpful and productive though, and that like, we've talked, us and them, like, we talk about this stuff very frequently, and so being able to hear some feedback from y'all is helpful for it.
Not that this is the last time that
No,
we'll be able to talk, but.
We'll be talking about this
Questions today from the PD, can I try to answer? Do y'all have any other questions I can try to answer right now?
Is there a outlook or time frame for a Main Street resource officer?
budget, no.
We do have on our books right now, we do have a community officer, on our books. I didn't even go down this road, but because it's not really applicable right now, but it's our manpower. It takes everything I got for a lot of these events, literally, I mean, everything I have. I have to leave enough for one patrol team off at all times, just for major events, major incidents. To circle back around to your question, our applications, knock on wood and thank good Lord, are increasing quite a bit. It is not filled right now. I can't tell you that by July it will be filled, but I can tell you that the probability of it being filled is getting a whole lot better. We are getting a lot more applications. Word's starting to get out. This is not the Department of Old. And we're starting to get interest, which is really, really good news for us.
Aaron, not to extend this conversation, but I want to ask you a question that may help the whole situation, but may be very unpopular within the police department.
I'm used to
Is
that.
there any way to involve the sheriff's department in on this?
We worked.
Is that a popular question? That is 5 o'clock now.
But
Oh.
they do have jurisdiction within the city limits.
They do, and if Christmas parade, I had 4 deputies working. They send me folks when they can.
Were they respectful to the organization and the seniority that you have, or were they just kind of like, we're
No,
here?
They do really well. The patrol captain over there and I, we came up through the ranks together. We were on the SWAT team together. We've got a very good relationship. When I call Jordan and say, hey, this is what I need, he said, I'll do everything I can to get it.
So that is.
Christmas parade, he fell short. He guaranteed me 4. He could only give me 3. He came himself, to make the 4th guy.
That's.
So we do have a fairly good relationship with them. They are stretched very thin right now as well, still have to man back cave and Gert 24/7. So it's kind of been a strain on them with events, but we have their VIPs. Usually when I call Hale, the guy over the county VIPs,
They helped
they're
us.
very responsive. They're limited on time frame due to age. They don't want to work a 8-hour event, so I've got to be cognizant of that when I schedule them, but we've got a pretty good relationship with them. They help us out as much as they can.
That is a potential to use a little more if we need it.
It's there, but it's not ever guaranteed. All I can do is ask. Laurel Park usually throws me 1 or 2, on our big events.
But yeah, other
So Blue Ridge Community College in the past has thrown me an officer or 2.
SRO officers are generally.
So I'm sorry,
SROs, school resource officers are generally down there during.
I use them on every event.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and talking to us today.
Yes.
Yeah, and Jamie will let me know, on next meeting, if I need to be here to answer questions. I don't have all the answers, guys. This is 24 years for me. This is the 2nd year going in doing special events, and this is a new beast for me. I've been the boots on the ground to go getter for my entire career, so this is a total different shift for me. So I don't have all the answers, and I tend to kind of make people mad sometimes. I don't mean to be brash or straightforward. So I'm kind of learning how to say things a little differently. But you're not going to offend me if you don't agree with me. You're not going to offend me if you've got a better idea. If you've got a better idea, bring it to me and I'll explore it. That's all I can tell you. So I mean, we're all trying to do this together and all trying to make it, the best we can.
I think it's helpful to hear the context of like why the times are what they are.
Last bit of business, we are looking forward to the new year, and the Economic Vitality team and Community Character team are going to become more distinctive. Community Character going to be focused on the kind of outdoor public space. I think we're going to be working with art council and public art type things. The Economic Vitality is going to focus more on the private sector and businesses. And because of that, we are going to begin moving the historic preservation grant approval to this subcommittee from community character. If there's something in the grant proposal that really falls under the purview of community character, like a mural, which we kind of want to move away from with the facade grants, they asked us to consider them, to include them. But for the most part, we want it to kind of serve building restructuring, facade, historic preservation, that sort of thing, and that kind of feels more of like the economic vitality purview.
Probably have several that are coming up soon, and so I'll share some more on our budget and everything. Our budget is slimmer this year because it's based off of how our events do and budgeting for the coming year we've been receiving quite a bit of money from the TDA for events, which then make our events get a positive income, and we're not gonna expect to get any of those. So we're expecting to have about $12,000 or so right now. But I am gonna be talking with the Historic Preservation Commission on the 15th. They meet at 5 o'clock. And because they have some extra budget money and they have previously given us money for facade grants. So I'm gonna see if we can have some of that to supplement, because there's about 3 or 4 of them that I am anticipating probably submitting applications, and the applications go up to $6,000. So $12,000 will not cover that many of them. So that's something that we're looking at. And also that Historic Preservation Commission meeting, this group might also be interested, and I'll share the information that's submitted when I get it or when I find it. But the Jane Asher Building, 340. You're 340, 344.
I'm 314.
Okay, I would get those two mixed up. 344 North Main. They are submitting for the Historic Preservation Commission to remove the facade, the front facade off of their building. So that's that first step. That's been something that we've been talking about forever.
I can't wait to see what's behind there.
Yeah, so that is that they're coming up for their first request for a certificate of appropriateness on Wednesday, the 15th, for the Historic Preservation Commission. And so when I get their like staff report and everything, I can go ahead and send that out so y'all can see that. But it might be something you might be interested in, just seeing what they've got planned for it. And I can probably get whatever their slides are and just send that out, because that's a big one. Just overall for,
Do you know if those
Main
have
Street.
potential tenants too?
I think they're just building it out for it. I think they're gonna split the first floor into 2 or 3 storefronts. Because it's pretty big. So anyway, exciting news on those. So that was the main thing I had for this, because we kind of
You have built-in criteria on the grants, right?
Great application, yeah.
So when we're reviewing those, we're gonna do that under the umbrella of those.
Yeah, and the Historic Preservation Commission, especially if we're gonna ask them for money, they might want to have some say in it, which I said, fine, because if it passes for Main Street, at least, if it passes certificate of appropriateness, there's not really much more that we would provide other than if there's any particular insight for it. And possibly, because 7th Avenue, they don't go through the Historic Preservation Commission, but that might be our way we can require them to go through the Historic Preservation Commission. So then that way they meet some of those standards. So we'll kind of want to think through on that and see what the HBC says on it for that. And that's all I have for right now.
So that'd be the most notable change this year and going forward. We're also gonna kind of look at doing a vacant building policy still, and kind of whittling up our building inventory that we have, whittling it down.
And now we're reverting back now after the hurricane. And then I think I sent everybody about the hurricane, the business recovery grants. Those been deployed. 25% of them went to Main Street 7th Avenue businesses, which was about either 25 or 50,000, I can't remember. So we're really excited about that. We've gotten a lot of money to help the businesses. I got a message from one of them said that it covered our rent for January, so yay. All right, that's all I have.
If there's any, no more news, no more business to do, we get a motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
Thank you.